You don't see this every day, but we do see it quite a bit in New Jersey. A corrupt mayor sentenced to prison. No, I'm not talking about the Atlantic City mayor. I'm talking about the mayor of Middlesex Borough, Middlesex Borough Mayor Ron DiMura. And I'll actually show you. I took this video of him walking out of the Middlesex County Courthouse after being sentenced to 7 years in state prison. He was the mayor of Middlesex Borough from 2016 to 2019, and he's been awaiting a final sentence in this case for over a year now. He was indicted in December 2019, and Mr. DiMura left behind a real mess in Middlesex Borough. It's actually the town I grew up in, and he was the mayor there again from 2016 to 2019, but he was also very involved in the Democratic Party politics. And he now becomes the third mayor in recent memory here in Middlesex County to be convicted of crimes. We had, of course, here John Lynch Jr. From New Brunswick and Perth Amboy's Joe Voss. Both pled guilty to federal crimes. This was a little different. It was a state case. And he was accused of defrauding his own friends and supporters, pretending to be a financial advisor and stealing their money for his own purposes. He created a charity that was basically a front, said that they were giving money for scholarships to students from the town. Only a small fraction of the funds actually went there. The rest were stolen by him. And so brazen, he even stole from the campaigns where he was the treasurer. So he was, very involved again in the local Democratic Party. So he was using the campaign funds as well on himself. There was a very moving testimony given by some of his victims to the judge in court on February 16th. The judge ultimately did sentence him to that 7-year sentence, but he might not have to spend 7 years in prison. That's not always how it works. He is ordered to pay $83,000 and change to his victims, and he's got to forfeit another $163,000 that he stole from the campaign organizations, which no longer exists. So that money would have to go to the state. And top Democrats around New Jersey have been silent on this issue. In particular, Governor Murphy. I asked him on August 14th if he had any comment on the mayor's guilty plea, and he said, quote, "I have no comment on the mayor's situation. Not surprisingly, I've read about it in the papers, but I've got no specifics." He was he did participate in a campaign kickoff event with that mayor in 2017 when he was running for governor. There's a photo of them together, but he has not condemned the crime, has not really commented on this case. And the same is true for Kevin McCabe, the chairman of the Middlesex County Democratic Organization. He has not responded to any of my emails or phone calls asking for a comment about this. He's, of course, the chairman of the County Democratic Organization. So you'd think he would be really upset and vocal if one of his mayors was stealing funds from the political campaigns that they were all trying to win. But no comment from Kevin McCabe. Of course, I did run against him for chairman last year, so maybe that's why he doesn't want to talk to me about it. But we have not heard from some of these top officials in the Democratic Party not condemning this, which, of course, can send the wrong message that this kind of thing is okay if folks don't condemn it. So Ron DiMura looking at 7-year prison sentence. But the trick is there's a program called ISP, Intensive Supervisory Program. This is offered to some inmates. You can apply for it once you get 60 days behind bars. And this is definitely a possibility for this defendant. If he plays his cards right, he could be out sooner than we think. He is not in prison yet because of the COVID pandemic. The judge gave the former mayor an extra 60 days to be free, and he has to make a good faith effort to try to get a vaccine in those 60 days, and then he would have to surrender at the Middlesex County Jail in in April of this year, at which point he would begin his 7-year sentence. But it was pretty clear from the discussion in the courtroom that he does intend to apply for ISP, and if he gets into the ISP program, he could be released by this time next year. So really interesting case. Of course, Middlesex Borough still cleaning up the mess this guy left behind. He worked out some really strange deals with a developer. Turns out that developer had also contributed to this phony charity of his, and he will have to pay that developer back $10,000. And also now the town has to deal with that developer failing to pay the payments in lieu of taxes on the developments that they built. And just this week at the Middlesex Borough Council meeting, it came out that the mayor had apparently switched some sewer accounts from active to inactive so that his friends would not have to pay sewer bills. What? So that just came out this week at the council meeting, that there were about 40 or more accounts. The mayor had personally, tampered with the settings to benefit his friends and allies. So more to come. We'll see if maybe even more charges come down the way for ex-mayor DiMura, and we'll see also if Governor Murphy will ever comment on this now that the plea is official and accepted, and he has been convicted. And we'll certainly continue to ask for answers on this. So, what do you think Charlie, of that one, Case?
I got a couple questions for you, man. So the first thing, for the love of God, no Democrat has commented on this. Like, no one in office, nobody of any stature.
Yeah, I mean, I did have to press the county commissioners on this, and ultimately I got them to say that they condemn all crime. But it was kind of I had to ask multiple times to get them just to address this, and even then they were being evasive and trying to make it about something else.
See, this is why people want to have a third party, and they're fighting to just get rid of the whole Democratic Party altogether. And that's absolutely crazy. The other question I have for you is, how many years was this mayor in power for? Do you know?
So, he was started running for stuff around 2012. So he did serve on the council for a few years, but then he became mayor after the 2015 election. And he finished a full term, he fell 1 month short of finishing a full term. He was not reelected. He lost reelection in 2019 to a Republican candidate, and he was indicted a month later and resigned right away, just a few days or hours after that indictment came down. But he did serve almost a full term as mayor of Middlesex Borough right here in Middlesex County.
Wow, because the reason why I ask is I'm curious how fast it takes for someone to get this corrupt. Because usually the person, you have great intentions to do something for your community. That's usually how it starts off. And then like slowly over time, you start, cutting corners, and people who are already in office or in certain areas are showing you the lay of the land, and maybe they'll say, hey, you can do this for me, and I'll do, I would think it happens over time, but it seemed like it happened pretty quickly, Charlie.
Yeah. And I think that, one of the things our article on NewBrunswickToday.com gets into is that there were red flags, so before the Democratic Party ever put this guy up for office or put him in charge of the money for their campaigns, they could have looked up the records that would have shown that when he was an insurance broker, that he had to relinquish his license for forgery. He had done something wrong with the paperwork and ultimately had to leave that business and give up his license because of it. But they put him in charge of the money for their campaigns. They ran him for council over and over again. They ran him for mayor. And, despite that red flag, they kept supporting him until the bitter end. And even now are, kind of still giving him a pass.
Wow. So he came up through the establishment ranks, right? There wasn't a progressive organization that kind of pushed this guy, right?
Yeah, no, certainly not a progressive by any means. Middlesex Borough is an interesting town. It's one of the few towns here in Middlesex County that's kind of a swing town, a district where sometimes the Republicans win, sometimes the Democrats win. So there's a little bit of a healthy split between the two parties there. But for whatever reason, the Democrats in that town got behind this guy and put him up for the highest office and got him in there. And now the whole town is having to pay the consequences of having a corrupt mayor. And thankfully, it was only one term. Some of these other mayors we look at, we see that they've had a long dynasty of corruption.
Oh, of course. And this is the last question I have for you before we move on to the next topic, is how much did he save those people with that sewer, switching off the sewer? Do you know by any chance?
Yeah, we don't know. One of our fantastic reporters here, Dave Polakevich, has been covering Mayor DiMura since before he joined our team, and he was the one who was at that meeting and just has started to report some of the details out. But the way it works basically is if you use a certain amount of water above a certain threshold, then you get an extra charge for the sewer. And these 40 or so folks were exempt from getting that charge. Not all of them hit the threshold that actually would have been charged, but some were, and some did get out from under it, and hopefully they'll have to eventually pay the bill.